which comes up with deep emotions. It's not just experiences, it's the emotional impact of those memories at the time when we experience them. They come up to us visually and they really hold us captive. So one of the most powerful ways of using meditation is going into a state of meditation, where initially you practice all that. At that point in time, bring up some of these memories. The simple word to remember it: relive and relieve. And you experience that memory in all its negativity. And that is where the concept of that sensation helps. As you sense it, experience it without fear, you will find gradually, when I say gradually, within 2 minutes actually, you will find the power of the negativity is lost.
We have some really cool short programs. One of them literally started today and will be with the lovely Tracy, who will join us soon, about what is beyond mindfulness. So we have a short program on that for anyone who is interested. It's 6 sessions weekly. We have another really cool short program about personal agility. So a few of you who would have been in our webinars before over the past couple of years would have seen Meenakshi, who is originally Indian, now lives in the US, and is an agile coaching professional and just a really, really cool chick. Anyway, so Meenakshi is starting her first personal agility at work program through us. That's starting on November 7th, I want to say. And yeah, it's for anyone, coach, non-coach. It's more like a life skill and a work skill about how you can kind of embrace agility more and become more agile, and what good things that can lead to, especially in the workplace. You know, with many people kind of doing this whole remote thing for the first time in their life, it's personal agility is a great skill to learn. In addition to that, we have all of our lovely regular programs. So if any of you out there are not credentialed coaches yet, you know who to talk to. We have multiple coach training programs starting every single month. So we hope to see you in those when you are ready to join us. And that's it. And Tracy's still not here. Maybe I'll give her a call.
No, that's okay. Yeah. By the way, I mean, Meenakshi is still Indian, except that she happens to be in the US.
She's still Indian, just like I'm still Polish. Yeah, I know. I just meant, like, you know, she brings a global perspective because she's multinational.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, Margaret, you're quite right. I mean, many people get surprised when I tell them I don't really meditate anymore. That's true. I just don't, because one is, like you said, you walk sailor, I walk on my own, or during that period I'm listening to some music and that takes me to a different space. So at the end of the day, I think most people don't understand this fine difference, that it's not meditation, it's not an altered state of consciousness. It's simply that you really stop following your thoughts wherever they lead. When you sort of keep following your thoughts from point to point, and if it keeps jumping, it's just plain madness. It's plain crazy. You don't know where you're going to end up with. You lose focus. So that's what meditation is about. Like my wife, you know, she just looks out of the window in the garden and looks at the birds and the flowers and whatever it is, and that's meditation for her. And for each one of us, there's a form of meditation, and that's all that you really need to do. So the formal kind of meditation that we do is something which could help you get into that state and probably get you disciplined to be able to just sit quiet for a while, so that you develop the patience, you develop the like you talked about learning agility, the agility to meditate, resolve, etc. And that's all where that helps. But after a period of time, you may not necessarily just do it that particular way. And especially if you are listening to a guided meditation and stuff like that, my sincere advice is to get rid of it, because that anchors you to a time and space. And without that guiding meditation or a sound or whatever it is, many people find it extremely difficult to move out of it. So that's the worst thing to get hooked onto, it, just as bad as any other addiction. So you just have to learn to just flow with whatever it is. And as if whatever you are observing, you are watching like the clouds in the sky, and that's what it is. You are not obsessed about it. You're not caught in those thoughts. And that's what meditation is, as defined in the Yoga Sutras by Patanjali. And it has 6 steps. Before that, it's a 7th step, and the final step is called completely disengaging, totally. The ability to focus on one thought disengages you, gives you the ability to disengage from all thoughts. So whatever questions you may have, I'm quite happy to answer. Magda's already posted a question there. As to, I mean, very often the questions that are asked to me, do you have to meditate in a particular space, a time, particular clothing, or like Indians truly believe that everything that you need to do only after having bathed in the morning, or brush your teeth, or God knows whatever. None of it is important. You can sit down at any point in time of day. Generally, avoid doing it immediately after or within an hour or 2 of eating. Your stomach is full, so it's very, very possible when you try and meditate, you fall asleep. Well, it's very good to meditate while sleeping. It's not so good to sleep while meditating, so it doesn't really help you in any way. So those are the kind of things. Or if you can actually meditate while exercising, as long as you're in the flow. And that's what we very often call the zone. People, whether they are runners or walkers, after a while are swimmers, you just don't think about what you're doing. The same way as you're probably driving a car, very often you don't even know, and everything else is robotic. It just happens automatically, but you are in a space where you're on a flow. So it's very similar to what you might call meditation. It's not that you are fantasizing, but even if you're listening to music, you're listening to a podcast or something, it takes you to a different space. So you're able to manage multiple things at a time. So while meditating, that too can happen. The couple of things that I would like to try and relate it to today is, if you have no other questions specifically, is about one, how meditation as far as coaching is concerned can be powerfully related to reflective practice, which we believe in Kocharya is extremely important for coaches, and ability for us to move forward in terms of our mindset and self-awareness in coaching, not merely just as skills or competencies and markers. And the second, it also gives you the ability to delve deeper into emotions and sensations. And when you apply it in that space, it also helps you to heal yourself. I can briefly talk about it. That itself is a huge topic, but I can briefly talk about it. And also, there's reasonably good corroborative evidence today that certain forms of meditation, especially related to the energy centers or chakras, those can significantly impact our neurobiology in terms of neurochemicals, in terms of the polyvagal nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, and so on. So let me see if there are any questions here. Couple of them. Just be rather silencing his mind meditation.
One thing that I always wonder about when it comes to meditation and the coaching space. Like, when is it appropriate for a coach to suggest to a client that they should try meditation? Like, is it ever appropriate? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's always appropriate as long as you're not intrusive. I mean, you can always offer it as a suggestion. It's not an advice. And so far, in my experience, and I've worked with people of different faiths, colors, race, etc., no one has ever turned it down. And when you explain meditation as a non-denominational, I wouldn't say irreligious, but non-religious kind of practice, when it helps you to clear your mind, as it were, when it helps you to focus on important matters, sometimes even enhance your intuitive abilities. I think very few people refuse that. And when this has been my experience so far, I've never had one person turning it down. And even when I do these centering sessions in my classes, I always start with this offer that if you're not comfortable with it, you don't have to join. You can switch off, do something else, and come back. And so far, no one has actually done that. So I don't know. I wouldn't worry too much about the appropriateness of it. It's almost like asking, is it appropriate to ask a person, what is it that you would like to discuss as an issue today, in a coaching session, which is obligatory, as it were. Almost in the same lines, there is absolutely nothing wrong to say, hey, would you like to center yourself? Or can we together center ourselves? Or at a later point in time, would you like to understand a bit more about meditation? If you're interested, I can be of some help, and those kind of things. So yeah, let me, a couple of questions that have come up here. And there was a question Subramanian had asked, just be rather than silencing your mind. I mean, Subra, I don't really see the difference, because when you silence your mind, you just are. Okay. Very often, this is what we keep saying in Kocharya, and many of our alumni talk about it now, is presence is exhibited when the coach is absent, which means the coach's ego is absent, the coach's judgment is absent, which is just that the coach is just there. The coach's mind is silent. So it all really depends on what do you mean by silencing the mind. To be absolutely honest with you, the mind is never silent. It's always at work. It's part of your autonomic nervous system. So it has to, when you talk about the mind is just not what you think is the brain and some part of it, which is the prefrontal cortex, which thinks. The mind, from a Vedic sense, as well as in what today we know very well, is neurobiology, consists of the senses, which are different parts of our brain, the peripherals, and what they sense in terms of whatever it may be, through the synapses, through whatever bits and bytes, they are transferred to the midbrain, which is a hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus, in fact, compares those sensations with what we have stored in our memory part, which is the hippocampus or the cerebellum. And after that, it gets passed on to the prefrontal cortex. So even if your understanding is the silencing is, yes, the prefrontal cortex is absent, so it's not really thinking, and therefore I'm feeling that it's silent, there are other parts of your brain which are continuously active, because that's necessary for your survival. It's something like when you are asleep, when the parasympathetic nervous system is active, taking care of you, that part of the polyvagal system. And so therefore, there's nothing silent. It's never silent. It's always active, which is one of the greatest fallacies that there is today. And I'm moving to a completely different space. In earlier days, it was all believed, and even till about, I would say, 20 years ago, that there were only 4 known brain waves that were in existence, which were the beta, which is where we are, usually 12 to 20 hertz when we are active. And then when we slow down, when we meditate or calm down, then it becomes 8 to 12 hertz, which is alpha. And below that are the theta and the delta. And it was always believed, and even now, a lot of people, especially TM practitioners, hold it very sacrosanct that meditation happens only when you are in the alpha state. And it's untrue, patently untrue. Herbert Benson established, and before him, people had attempted it, working with the Tibetan Lamas. There is this breathing exercise called Chomno breathing, as well as the Tibetan monasteries where the initiates were made to sit outside in the snow, naked, with just a wet cloth around them. They had to practice meditation to raise their body temperatures by about 10 to 15 degrees, which would kill them normally. And it dried this the cloth, and they had to come back with a dry cloth to prove that they have been successful. And at that point in time, the waves that were exhibited were gamma, which were 30 and above, 30 to 40. So my own personal experience, I might have talked about it earlier, is when I first did this in Singapore and measured, they said, yeah, one part of what you did was right. It all was healing, your color changed, and we were able to measure it, but you're not meditating. The machine didn't show that you were meditating. It showed that you were nowhere in that range. And it took another 15 years, if I remember, for this concept to be understood. And today, the measurement methodology goes up to 50, 60 hertz, which they never believed could exist. And I consistently touched about 35 to 40. I mean, I'm not arrogating myself to anything great, but meditation is active. All I'm saying is the mind is not silent. Active meditation doesn't mean that you are going off to sleep and because from theta to delta, if you go, you're really going into deep sleep, and ultimately you die if you're a flatliner. So that's a very, very long-winded answer to a short question. A couple of others before I start sparring with Tracy. How to keep people committed to the practice even they don't see? I have no idea. How do you keep people committed to coaching if they don't see the immediate result, they don't want to be coached? Don't coach them, that's all. I mean, these are questions for which there are no answers. If people don't see the result or they're not interested, they won't. But most people, if they sincerely try it, they would find something. So honestly, I'm not good enough to give you an answer on this. What he does before I start a coaching session, I don't do anything, to be honest. I mean, let me not pretend. I don't sit there and gaze at my navel or do any of those things. I just am. That's about all. And what I only do is to leave my ego behind and come here and say, I don't know if I don't know. And if I know, and if I have validated it through my experience, I share with you. And if there are questions, yeah, to the best of my ability that I answer, that's about all. So there isn't anything, I mean, meditation is not something you do the same way that you don't in a coaching session. I mean, just the other day, in one of our classes, I was explaining about exploring body sensations. We have this process called LASI, which is about listening and observing, acknowledging and appreciating, sensing and sharing, and inquiring and exploration. And while inquiring and exploration, you use a process of inquiry into sensations, emotions, and thoughts. The reason we suggest that is thoughts, which are from the prefrontal cortex, they are often about perceptions. They are not about the reality. They are not even about what you really sense, because by that time, the sensations, the data, bits and bytes have been already filtered through your hypothalamus and hippocampus. And so what you're presented with, perceptions of your condition, not the true ones. So if you really want to go into raw data as well, metadata, or whatever you want to call it in cyber language, you need to go to the emotions, which are more real than thoughts, and sensations, which are truly real. They are the exact way that you have received it. So if you have experienced something powerful, so you just invite the client while talking about something where they have struggled, they are frustrated, whatever is happening, instead of asking a silly question like, what are you feeling? Which doesn't mean a damn, because 99% of the time, the person is going to say what he is thinking or she is thinking, not about what really are the emotions. However difficult many of you may think that getting into emotions is difficult, it's not. It may be simpler to just ask, hey, can you, if you like, with your permission, may I invite you to, as you sit there, experience it and try and see, as you relive that experience, is there anything that is coming up in your body? And where is it coming up? You may not immediately get an answer. You need to refine the technique a little bit. But believe me, it's miraculous. I've had experiences of people coming up with stuff that you can never believe. Yeah, you know, I'm feeling this really, really strong sensation in my stomach or in my heart region or whatever. What does it look like? What color? How does it feel for you? And as they look at it, what is coming up for you as you look at it? In terms of emotion, in terms of thoughts, my God, you know, the brown water flows in a much more real way, authentic way than all that they would have described earlier to you as perceptions. You can achieve things in 10 minutes, what would take you hours to be able to achieve. So, and in order to do that, you need to be completely open. And that's where, again, ad nauseum, we keep saying, unconditional positive regard, empathy, and congruence. You don't violate your authenticity, you are there, but keep your opinions to yourself. And so the question that was asked of me by one of our learners is, how is it happening? I need to know. He said, I was a bit rude, unfortunately. I said, you don't need to know. It's none of your damn business. You as a coach, you need not know anything that happens with a client. Just inquire humbly with the client what's happening to you. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know if the client has sensations in the stomach, this is what it means, or heart, it is what it means. No. You can learn about it for yourself. I can teach you that, but that's irrelevant. When I'm working with a client, I would never do that. So prepare myself for a coaching session. You just leave my baggage behind me, that's all. Whether it's a training session or a coaching session or whatever it might be, try and be completely mindless, not mindful, because that stuffs you with arrogance about what you know. You start expressing your opinions in a biased way. So, which is where the concept of mindlessness comes in. And there was another question here. Thank you for validating mind is never silent. I understand people say, turn off your mind. You can't. I mean, Patricia, this is one of the, and again, I think I did talk about it earlier. People think, you know, meditation, all that is going to happen to you is some fantastic things that you will see the lights and you will see stars and rubbish. It's all nothing. Nothing of that sort happens. When you start meditating, if you're a first-time meditator, all the garbage within you is going to come out. You're going to feel that you are in the midst of flowing sewage. Be prepared for it. At the lowest depths of your being, your guilt, shame, your regrets, and everything else, all that in the Freudian, Jungian iceberg which is residing at the bottom feeding fish, stuff will come out. And it takes several sessions before that gets cleaned up. I mean, if you truly believe in meditation, if you go into deep meditation, I'm talking about all this little bit of going into trance state, subconscious and all that is fine. But some of you who've been with me to these programs, and if you really do some of these serious meditation techniques, go deep within yourself. If it doesn't happen, then you are not meditating. It has to happen. Those negativities will need to come out of you. They need to flow out of you. And once that is done, you feel cleaner and you get better. And it's a healing process. That's why meditation is healing. And then you can focus on different parts of your body to trigger certain emotions. We can come to that if you are interested. So yeah, thinking of something, what I meant for silencing may require an effort. Okay. What is the real goal of meditation? I have no idea. There is no goal to meditation. If you want to find out about yourself, your true self, you meditate. I mean, these are questions like this really, these are cognitive questions. Leave that brain of yours behind. Why should there be a goal to everything that you do? If you're talking about a being state, what is the goal of being in the being state? If you don't know, don't do it. And I'm not trying to discredit any of you, but please. I mean, the whole point of meditation is that you discover a part of you that you are not even aware of. The part of you is not silent, but it's your basic nature. Maybe you'll discover your purpose, I don't know. But don't expect it. In initial stages, the more you expect, the less you will get. Meditation is not about setting a goal. It's not about an objective. You can use the meditative state to visualize towards an intent. But then you need to achieve that level of proficiency to be able to do it. At which point that intent has to be really serving you as well as everybody else. It cannot be selfish. Otherwise, it can be damaging for you. So, anyway, I'll stop here. Tracy, you always have great questions and stuff, and we talked about reflective coaching in the session yesterday and other stuff. And after you left, we went into details of how to look at sensations, emotions, etc. So whatever comes up for you, and if there's something that is coming up on the chat box as well. And please, I mean, Venkat and I and others, I'm not trying to sort of belittle your questions, but these are, if you really want to experience meditation, you need to leave that part of you behind. The scientific mind always thinks that we need to be in the state of inquiry. And is the be all and the end all of all the great Western knowledge. The Eastern knowledge, no, it's not. The inquiry is about within, not outside. And by discovering what is within you, what's happening within you, you can discover a lot more about the outside. And this is what Daniel Goleman says, even in his own emotional intelligence model, that unless you become self-aware, you cannot be socially aware. And that's really what we are talking about here. And for you to be able to inquire within, don't look at goals and objectives and KPIs and OKRs and all that rubbish. Just be. Try and sense what's going on within me. Why do I even ask these questions? Why can't I just relax and be? And if you are in that state, automatically something will happen to you. And believe me, that's really what happens. Okay, is there anything else that really, not always state of inquiry, state of acceptance. Yeah, absolutely, Deepak, yeah. It's the 4 words that I normally combine for this purpose is love, compassion, acceptance, and gratitude. These are the four that flow together. And when you actually meditate and you start breathing in and out in a very structured way from your heart space, and that's really the space that you become. One of expanding in love, expanding in compassion, expanding in acceptance, and expanding in gratitude. Each one builds on the other. And these are truly the noblest of all our emotions. And they get rid of all the negativities that we have. And that's truly the state at which a coach should operate. And when you do that, you let go of all your ego, you become mindless. And so, I mean, going back to, I think, Marisa, somebody asked, if you want to, for me, it's not difficult, but for someone who's just starting on this, it's probably a little bit more difficult. My simplest advice when you want to get into that state is close your eyes for a few minutes before you get into any serious, be it coaching, be it any other kind of critical discussion. Breathe very, very deeply from below your navel, diaphragm. Hold the breath for a few seconds. Exhale very, very slowly, hold it, repeat this a few times, and then just focus on your heart region. And as you're doing this breathing, feel that you're expanding. You are expanding your energy into that of the cosmos. Visualize it, whether it's real or not, whatever happens, just feel that expansion. And think about love, compassion, acceptance, and gratitude. And some of these things in terms of love, yes, you can focus on someone you know, you truly love, and acceptance in terms of what is happening to you at this point in time, and gratitude, the people that you meet, and what are you grateful for, whatever that energy, the loving energy that created all of us. So once you get into that state, you are truly in a state of the spirit, the energy, the spirituality. And that's what coaching is. Coaching is not about earning $1,000 per hour. Coaching is about genuinely being connected with the other person and to be able to help that person with unconditional positive regard. So you need all of it, the love, the compassion, the acceptance, and the gratitude to be able to do that. Yeah, over to you, Tracy. Sorry.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you. A few things came up for me. We were talking before joining here about the idea of relaxing into presence. And so that's what I thought of when we were thinking about like dropping the goals, you know, like when we're in meditation, thinking about a purpose other than what you were saying, like feeling the awareness and the love and the gratitude. The whole point is to kind of just relax and be present and then learn to practice those states. And I guess, you know, what comes up for me, Ram, is as I'm trying to verbalize this is the metta meditation, which is maybe a little more of a concentric practice. I don't know if I said that right, really helps us practice being able to access that space. And I find that the more that I'm meditating and bringing up those feelings of love and gratitude, and usually that's by visualizing someone that I love and visualizing something that I'm grateful for, the more intuitive that becomes, and the more that I'm able to just drop in there when I notice myself getting caught up in my ego, or when I notice myself getting caught up in a reactive state. So yeah, I wanted to explore that with you because I know that you have a few practices that you've shared on here with metta and ho'oponopono, if that's the correct way of saying it. That's really like working on cultivating that gratitude, that love, that forgiveness, and the compassion. And I guess that would be as far as we would want to go in terms of having a purpose for meditation. Would you agree?
I do, but let me expand on it a bit. You know, the reason why I was being very emphatic, not empathetic about what I think Venkat or somebody put there as a goal is, yes, it is possible that finally you can, once you reach a particular point of ability to meditate, to use it as a visualization technique and to be able to set yourself an intent and so on. But that requires a certain amount of practice to cleanse yourself, heal yourself, and before you get to that state, because otherwise it can also be quite dangerous. It could be the kind of situation where be careful what you wish for, it may happen, and that may not necessarily serve you. Now to go back to some of the meditations, we did, I mean, the basic meditation I usually take people through in the last session where we did a combination of meditations over that 1 hour. There's a one where we start with a simple body awareness, the way that we sit, with our spine erect, which is the most important thing. And if you're sitting in a chair with your feet slightly extended in front of you, the knees always lower than your hips and your neck tucked in and your hands resting lightly on your lap or your chair, and anchoring with the first 2 fingers coming together, and then breathe deeply. And many people, I usually do my centering sessions with starting first to tense yourself a couple of times, 3 times, and relax so that you really, most people, or even myself, sometimes, when we say relax, you don't relax, you stay tensed. And unless you tense yourself and then relax and see the difference, sometimes it becomes difficult to even to relax. And then breathe in what I recently learned from someone sent to me, the 4-box technique or 4-point technique or whatever it may be, where you actually breathe in, inhale deeply, and hold it for a few seconds, exhale slowly, and hold it for a few seconds, and then inhale. And these need not be uniform. Usually the inhalation is deep, intense. The holding may not be for the same amount of time. If the inhalation is for, once you start practicing, once you know it well, it may be about 10 seconds, but the holding may be just 5 seconds, both before and after the exhalation. And the exhalation may be about 20 seconds or so, at least twice as long, sometimes twice as long. And those of you who haven't heard about this book called, I think, Breath by Nestor. It's a beautiful book where he talks about various experiences and various kinds of practices. And he talks about 5.5 cycles per minute, roughly about 11 seconds. In order to reach that as a normal state of your breathing, probably at least for about 15 to 30 minutes a day, you need to go into a much longer cycle of almost about between 30 to 45 seconds, which you can easily do. So that's the second part of it, body awareness, the breath awareness. And once you have done the breath awareness for a while, maybe for about 5 minutes or so, and generally, if you go back to that meditation technique, we go into the chakras, as it were. I usually start with the top of the head and go down from the head to the forehead, to the throat, the heart, the navel, the lower abdomen, the perineum region, and go up the same way. And as we go up, we visualize a beautiful ball of light, which keeps expanding, which is the energy, the Kundalini energy, which is within us. And then as it is moving up, it expands and expands and expands beyond your skin, the boundaries of your body and mind. And then when you are reaching the top, it's almost as if you are with the energy of the universe, which is expanding constantly. And what you spoke about, the metta meditation, is actually covered in this. This is what the metta meditation is about. Usually the metta meditation is focusing on the heart, and you expand. And sometimes it is done with a corollary to it. So you expand, and then you come back into the heart, and then you go deeper into your system at the cellular level. It's a more difficult kind of meditation. So some crazy things happen. I don't do it too often, but once in a while, just for the heck of it, I do it. Maybe you would like to experiment, get yourself smaller and smaller. It's like one of those tiny cameras that you swallow and they go into whatever smaller arteries and veins and stuff like that, and what's happening within you. It's just an awareness technique. And then we have gone through the elemental meditation, which is something that I put together from different sources, where we comprise of 5 elements: the earth, water, fire, air, and space, and go through each one of them, which normally for us frightens. We get buried in the earth, we can get drowned in the water, we get cremated in the fire, and we don't know what the heck is going to happen if we go out there in the air and space. But can you become more comfortable with it? And that kind of a meditation, elemental meditation, takes away the fear. So these are some of the things that you can do to prepare yourself to reach a sense of equanimity. But then you can also go specifically into spaces. For example, if you were to look at issues of invalidation, for example, that I don't feel loved, I don't feel people are acknowledging me, I don't feel liked. And therefore, as a result, I'm not able to love myself, and so it becomes a vicious cycle. So if you're able to focus on your heart and practice, whether it's metta meditation or any meditation, or even just visualize a bright ball of light in your heart region and expanding that light. And in parallel, just place those experiences that you are having. Don't obsess about them, but just bring them up for a moment and discard them. Bring them up for a moment and discard them, and see what happens to you. And you'll find gradually the effect of those will, in a sense, wither. They will go away. It's almost as if we are holding these memories in our mind space, whichever part of the mind it is, the hippocampus or the cerebellum, wherever it is, or even at the cellular level. Actually, in visuals, even if it's a PTSD kind of stuff, the traumas. And if when we really get affected by them, they're triggered by something or other, it's a visual memory which comes up with deep emotions. It's not just experiences. It's an emotional impact to those memories at the time when we experience them. They come up to us visually and they really hold us captive. So one of the most powerful ways of using meditation is going into a state of meditation, where initially you practice all that. At that point in time, bring up some of these memories. The simple word to remember it: relive and relieve. And you experience that memory in all its negativity. And that is where the concept of that sensation helps. As you sense it, experience it without fear, you will find gradually, when I say gradually, within 2 minutes actually, you will find the power of the negativity is lost. You no longer have to worry about it. And I can guarantee you this, it'll happen. You can try it with any emotion, a fear, something about greed, something about anger, something about being blamed or guilt or whatever it may be. The heart is the safest region for you to do it, but sometimes when it is about stress and anxiety, you can focus on your navel region. If it's deep fear, you can focus on your lower abdomen and so on. So there are different ways of how you energize them to relive and relieve. So you can use them as well. These are applications. And going back to what Venkat asked, I wouldn't set it as a goal of meditation. I'll get into meditation anyway. But once I have reached a stable state of meditation, when I'm equanimous, as it were, having gone through these cycles, then I would just place as an intent in my heart space what I'm hoping can happen. And that is something which serves me and serves other people as well. With love and compassion for other people, with a complete acceptance that this in the universal energy space has already happened as soon as I have placed my intent. But it will manifest itself to me when I'm ready, and therefore express my gratitude. This is a very powerful form of visualization that we can all do. And I have worked with people, and they have come back and told me how much it has helped them happen. But it's not like, don't try it for winning a lottery. It's not going to work. If anything, you might lose what you have. But if you really would like to help yourself and help other people, and it's systemic in that sense, it's truly spiritual, reaching out. And believe you me, at least in my life for the last about 40 years when I have practiced it, it's never ever not happened. It happens slowly. It may take time. Sometimes it happens in ways that I do not realize. But as long as I accept it and I'm grateful for whatever that has happened, it'll manifest itself. And so one of the first tools here is we often want pain to go away. It'll never happen. You can make suffering go away. Pain is mandatory. In life, you will go through pain, be it physical, be it emotional, be it whatever. You will have diseases. You will have, if you are body and flesh, it will happen. But it doesn't mean you need to suffer. The suffering is in your mind. So you need to separate these two, and meditation can help you separate these two. Even if there is pain, a simple way of feeling that I used to work with people at one time when I was a spiritual healer was to help them to focus on the pain. It may look as if the pain is increasing, but suddenly you will find, yes, the pain is there, but I'm not suffering anymore. I'm able to carry on with other stuff. It's not bothering me. It is not holding me back. So these are some of the things that you can learn to do with meditation. But please don't go with it as an intent. This is what I want to do, and therefore this is going to be my goal. There is no goal or objective as such. For meditation. Yeah, Tracy, whatever that comes up for you now.
Thanks. There is a question in the chat about needing to know the basics of how to start meditation. I guess perhaps this is someone that hasn't meditated before.
Look, yeah, just go through the guided meditation. I think the last session's meditation that we did for about an hour, any of it initially, but after that, as I said, please discard the guiding part of it. The whole concept of yoga is a very powerful way to learn meditation, because it talks about the various steps. Of course, the first two steps are about behavior, the universal code of behavior, and the daily code of behavior, as it were. And you may or may not want to go through it deeply, but basically, any form of meditation only helps when you have a certain moral code for yourself, an ethical code for yourself, at least as non-violence and not being greedy and stuff like that. And from a physical sense, the first thing to do is to sit in a zone of comfort. You don't have to cross your legs. You can sit in a chair if you like. You can lie down and do, but that's not something that I would advise, because you can easily feel drowsy and go to sleep. But usually sitting in a hard back chair or one with a hard back, with your spine erect, as I said, with your feet stretched up a little bit, with your hands lifted lightly. Tense yourself a few times, untense yourself, and then you breathe. And the breathing, the simplest way of breathing is, as I already explained, I'm repeating it for the sake of this question. Breathe deeply as you can from below your navel. Hold that breath for a few seconds, exhale very, very slowly in pulses, and then hold it again and continue this for a while. And after that, you can just focus on your heart and just be there, breathing, nothing. And thoughts will come to you. Don't stay with that thought. Just allow it to come and flow out, allow it to come and flow out. And sometimes suddenly you realize that, yeah, just I'm following up that thought, give it up and move forward. So, and lots of things will come up initially when you start meditating. As I said, it's like a clogged switch by opening up. All kinds of negative emotions will come up. Let them come up. That's the purpose of meditation initially. And don't go with them, don't regret them. It's just you. You have to accept who you are. And that's what is within me, that's coming out now. That's fine. And you practice it, but be consistent. In order to be a good meditator, you need to sit for at least about 20 minutes. Once a day is enough. You can do it twice, that's fine. But if you're able to do at least once a day for about 20 minutes, and initially you practice that with that rigor, and you see that something is shifting within you. And gradually, as you go through that process, then you can learn to do it without that rigor of sitting in one place. You can do it while walking, you can sit wherever you want, and initially you can use a guided meditation and so on. So that is what I would advise you. So you can go back to, we have multiple tapes in Kucharya, 20 minutes, 40 minutes, and so on and so forth. Last one was about 45 or 50 minutes, I don't remember. You can use that. And if you have any problems, please post the questions on our support, and I'll certainly take the time to answer those. I think that is what I can say. That is as basic as it can be. But once you've gotten used to it, as I said, you don't have to really follow any particular set routine. Any activity that you are in, be it like Nagda was talking about, what was it, power washing or whatever, it could be, for me, to be very honest with you, I get into a meditative state while I'm washing dishes, because I can't cook for nuts, but so we don't have a maid in someone, so my responsibility is to wash the dishes, and I quite love it. So it's very meditative doing. Walking is for me meditation. For my wife, cooking is meditation. So for different people, different things are meditation. For most people, music is meditation. So if you really love some music, whatever the music is, whether it's Beethoven or whether it's classical Indian music or something else, soul music, or it could even be Beatles. If you really love it, so long as it's not one of those horrible tectonic, whatever they call it, EDMs or whatever kind of music which breaks your brains, anything which is harmonious, anything which is soothing is always highly meditative. These are things which should help us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Nothing else in the chat. And I think one of the things that I've learned myself is to drop the expectations when it comes to meditation. And so along the lines of what you were saying earlier. to realize it's going to be a different experience every time, and and not to get attached to the type of experience it is, because sometimes I'll feel like, oh, that was a really powerful meditation, and as soon as I start feeling that way, I'm measuring it against others, you know. Yeah, that's something that I've been kind of looking to let go of, is this idea of trying to attain or achieve anything, and just allow whatever is going to happen for me to happen in that moment.
Tracy, this is where I think we need to understand the difference between an expectation or a goal from an intent. As long as it's an intent, which is, I interpret intent as something which is coming from a deep inner purpose, an inner need. It's not a want. Oh, my neighbor has a Mercedes and I don't have one, and therefore I want one. Is not an intent. It's a greedy want. But an intent is to fulfill a need. I need to get somewhere, I need to study something, or I need to help somebody to do something, whatever it is. I may not have the means to do it. I would like to be able to do it. That kind of stuff, which is going to benefit me and also benefit another person. It makes me feel fulfilled and it helps another person. That's a genuine intent, which is not limited to me, which is expansive. And that certainly can be the purpose at the end of a meditative session. And you can derive great benefits from it. One of the most beautiful books that I read, and still is a Bible for me, is a book called Creative Visualization by Shakti Gawain, and I recommend all of you. So please read that book, and she goes through those steps similar to what I've expressed, and then how you visualize and how you manifest it in your mind as a reality and let it go. And the most important thing is to let it go. You don't hold it, you don't have an expectation, and you accept that it will happen. And so those are the kind of things that we can do. And for those of you who are really serious about meditation, we have just a couple of minutes that goes with that, is do the Vipassana program. It is one of the most powerful meditations that I've gone through. It's 10 days of silence. It does an enormous amount of good. And I think it should be a prescribed process for any aspiring coach, because it truly would help you understand who you are. And without knowing who you are, without that self-awareness, you can never really be a good coach. And that is, in a sense, what a meditation like that can do to you. For Vipassana, Tracy, you can put it on the website, that's in the chat. It is www.dhamma.org. And it will give you, near your space, wherever you are in the world, you would have a place which provides you. It's free. 10 days, they only feed you twice a day. Last meal is at 12. After that, how much your stomach growls, you get used to it, and you have to be silent. For a couple of hours, you've got to sit in a space where you can't get out of that space. If you want to follow it, you can't speak to anybody, you cannot read, you cannot write, you cannot have your laptop, you cannot use your mobile, you cannot look another person in the eyes. So all the senses are completely blocked, and that is what is called pratyahara in the yogic terms. And pratyahara is achieved, and from there you move into dharana, which is focusing, and then from there breathing, and then moving into dhyana, which is meditation. And ultimately you end in the last state of yoga, which is the samadhi, that is engagement. It's an extraordinarily powerful space to go to. Okay, yeah, the website is there. I think Tracy has already put it there, Gail. It's there, www.dhamma.org, or just type Vipassana, Vipassana, and you will get the website. It's a global website. It will give you video to multiple locations and where the courses are available. Usually they are booked for a couple of months in advance, maybe more, but it's worth waiting, worth going. I wouldn't say it is easy, but it's a life-changing experience. Okay, thank you guys. So we've had 3 sessions on meditations. We are done with it, and next week, next month, we will have something else. I think whatever it is. I mean, Tracy, you had some ideas, somebody else had other ideas, self-coaching, self-inquiry and stuff like that. We will get into it. What are the other things that can expand our worldview of coaching? Take care, all of you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.